Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of The Russell Show. My name is Russell Brooks, and on today's show I'm going to recite a passage from the best-selling novel, Children of the Fog, by best-selling Canadian author Cheryl K. Tardif. Here's the tagline: You have 10 seconds to make a decision. Let a kidnapper walk away with your child, or watch your son die. You choose. Now in this story, Sadie O'Connell is a best-selling author and a proud mother. But her life is about to spiral out of control. After her 6-year-old son, Sam, is kidnapped by a serial abductor, she nearly goes insane. But it isn't just the fear that's driving her over the edge, it's the guilt. Sadie is the only person you see who knows what the kidnapper looks like, but she can't tell anyone because she does. Her son will be sent back to her, FedEx, in tiny little pieces. Now, when Sadie's unfaithful husband stumbles across her drawing of the kidnapper, he sets into play a series of horrific events that sends her hurtling over the edge. Now, Sadie's descent into alcoholism leads to strange apparitions and a face-to-face encounter with the monster who abducted her son, a man only known as the Fog. So, without further ado, here's Children of the Fog. Children of the Fog by Cheryl K. Tardif. Sadie closed the door and slid the deadbolt into place. Then she locked up the rest of the house, set the alarm for the night, and went upstairs to check on Sam. When she opened the door to his room, she smiled. Sam was stretched out across his bed, on top of the blankets. A soft snore issued from his half-opened mouth. Oh, he had passed out from exhaustion, his face covered with chocolate cake, white, black, and blue icing. Oh, and an orange pop mustache. Happy birthday, little man, she whispered, tucking an extra blanket around him. She closed the door and headed upstairs to wait for Philip. Sadie was abruptly roused from a deep sleep. She jerked to a sitting position, inhaling deeply, and looked at the space beside her. It was unoccupied, the blanket still tucked under the pillow. She had waited for Philip downstairs for hours. Eventually, she had given up and gone to bed. She peered at the bedroom clock. It was midnight. She'd only been asleep for about 45 minutes. In the murky shadows of the room, she felt a foreign presence, a movement of air that was so subtle it could have been her own breath. A draft? She squinted at the window. It was closed. Somewhere in the house, a floorboard creaked. Philip must be home. Tossing the blankets aside, she slid from the bed and walked to the door. Remembering the brick thrown through Sam's window, she froze. Her stomach fluttered as she imagined a gang of teen hoodlums breaking into the house. But the alarm would go off. Silly. Still, she pressed an ear to the door and strained to listen. At first, there was silence. Then another creak. Philip, she mumbled. She was about to open the door when she heard an unfamiliar ticking sound. Had Philip bought a clock for the hall? She listened again. Tick, tick, tick. Whatever it was coming closer. Her heart began to pound a maniacal rhythm, and her breath quickened. When a shadow passed underneath the door, she held her breath. Her heart thumped almost painfully in her chest. Then the shadow was gone. Cautiously, she opened the door just a crack. The hall was empty. And there was no ticking. Maybe I dreamt it. With a tremulous laugh, she flung open the door, a show of false bravado. Maybe Philip was working in his office. Maybe he had gone to check on Sam. Philip? She walked down the hall and stopped in front of Sam's door. Her toes tingled as a draft teased her feet. She shivered, then opened the door. The window that Philip had replaced gaped open, black and hungry, like a mouth waiting to be fed. The curtains flapped in the night wind, 2 tongues lashing out. She frowned. Philip hadn't left the window open. He'd gone to work early without a word to either of them. And Sam couldn't have opened it. He wasn't tall enough. Did I leave it open? She crossed the room, barely looking at the mound in the bed. She reached for the window and tugged it shut. The lock clicked into place, the sharp sound clattering, shattering the stillness. Then she glanced at the bed. Sam hadn't even stirred. But then again, he never did. He was almost comatose when he slept, and nothing could wake him early, short of a sonic boom. She tiptoed to the bed and touched his hair. Then, closing her eyes, she leaned down, kissed his warm forehead, and breathed in his sweet child scent. He smelled of chocolate and sunshine. Snug as a bug, she whispered. She stepped back, her foot connecting with something soft and furry. She reached down. She fumbled in the dark until she found the stuffed toy dog that Philip had given Sam the night before. She moved quietly towards the closet, inched the door open, and tossed the toy inside. Then she stepped out into the hall, shutting the bedroom door behind her. Her gaze flitted to the far end of the hallway, where shadows danced between silk trees and stood in the alcove. Beside the trees, 2/3 up the hall, 2/3 up the wall, was a small oval window, and through it a new moon was visible. It hung in the cloudless sky, a pearlescent pendant on invisible string. It was a beautiful night, one that was meant to be shared. Loneliness filled her, but she shrugged it off and plodded down to the kitchen to get a glass of juice. 5 minutes later, she went back upstairs with every intention of crawling back into bed and ignoring the fact that Philip hadn't even bothered to call on the night of the son's birthday party. As she passed Sam's door, a flicker of light beneath it caught her attention. Then she heard a soft thud. Sam must have fallen out of bed again. He had done that on 2 other occasions. Usually he woke up screaming. She opened the door and sucked in a breath as her gaze was captured by something that made no sense at all. The window was open again. She blinked. What the? Moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating the bed. It was empty. Sam? She reached for the light switch. I wouldn't do that if I were you. At the sound of a stranger's hoarse whisper in her son's bedroom, she did the most natural thing. She flicked on the light.